Hello everybody, welcome to my album review of the new Sleep Token album, Take Me Back to Eden. I'm going to be reviewing this whole album as a track list, and I might be doing that for a lot of the albums, it just depends. I think, frankly, with this one, I've written a bunch of notes about each track, so I kind of want to go through it one by one, because it'll be a bit easier, especially since I have not done a proper full-length review on an album. I've only limited it to my actual monthly reviews, which I'm still going to do, but I'm also going to try doing proper full-length reviews as well on albums, and this one definitely struck me down with with the idea of doing this, because I was absolutely anticipating this album pretty much all year, so that's definitely I'm glad it's here. Let's review all the tracks from Chokehold to EUCLID, I think that's how you pronounce it. We're going to start off with Chokehold. What I like about this one is the way it blends its pop and metal. It kind of gives a mainstream sounding direction, but it does soar with some pretty colourful ideas, especially instrumentally, as the song builds up and just gets more aggressive and kicks in more of the guitar work, and I definitely enjoy that part of the song. I don't care if the song's a little bit more mainstream sounding. I think for a lead single it does a pretty good job. It hypes up the album, and especially for an intro track as well, I think it's a great direction. I think this track's more fun, if anything. It's probably the best way I can describe it. It's just got some bouncy ideas, like the bouncy riffs you hear after the first time you hear Chokehold. It's honestly a pretty good song. I like this more loud direction they have as well. It definitely seems like they're going for a more heavy direction than This Place Will Be Your Tomb, their previous album, which it did have some heaviness to a degree, but it was more electronic and pop focused, going for a little bit of a different vibe as this album is. But yeah, one of their more fun sounding songs that lifts the album off its feet to then build up and place it inside a chokehold. I wrote that, it's a bit cheesy, but that's just how I'm going to describe it. It's definitely a song that just lifts you up, pulls you in. It's got some Sleep Token magic there. This one is a 3.5 out of 5. Next track is The Summoning. This track took the internet by storm and stuck Sleep Token more into the mainstream. It garnished over 34 million streams on Spotify as I'm recording this, and over 6 million views on YouTube. It's pretty insane, honestly. This kind of showcases the more metal aspects, like more unclean vocals, some heavier riffs, which we haven't really had much of in the last album, and I like the way they glide across Vessel's harmonic attributes, especially within the chorus, with absolute peak amazing chorus, one of my favourites from the band in general, and it's a direction I personally like to see a lot more of. Just anything more heavy. Slipknot is definitely something I think a lot of fans were looking forward to, especially since this song is one of the heaviest they released, and it was the one that became quite a sensational hit across the internet. The synths using to connect the heavy act of the song to the jazz outro is honestly, I really like it. It just kind of is a nice little transition to this little jazz aspect, and I personally enjoy how it reenacts the pre-chorus and chorus just with this overall jazzy theme. I quite like it. It's quite a nice change of pace and gives the song a little unique touch to it. But yeah, honestly, it's a well-deserved hit for the band, and I think it is without a doubt one of their best songs, period. I'd probably say when this song came out, it was my personal favourite from Sleep Token. Like, throughout the whole of their EPs 1 and 2, Sundowning and This Place Will Be Your Tomb, I still think that this was the best song to that point, so that definitely got me quite hyped for this album. Yeah, I thought it would overshadow Chokehold, honestly, but instead it kind of shows a range of creativity between the two singles. I would say this one is much better though. I give this a full 5 out of 5. This is really good. Next we have Granite, another single, and in the release order of Chokehold first and The Summoning second. This one was quite different, and people didn't really know what to expect after the heavy Summoning released. And what we got was pretty much diving into a sort of R&B style track with a dash hint of pop and metal to distinguish a familiar sound that the band has. GRANITE keeps to a calm flow throughout that has some of Vessel's best vocal work. Yeah, I definitely think the chorus is a absolute highlight to this, especially towards the later half of the album, where it just blends into the more centric breakdown guitars. I personally think give it quite a flavorful kick, and I really enjoy it. I definitely like this aspect they play into it. I wasn't really expecting the song to have it, and that kind of was my pretty much my big shocker for it. I was kind of not a big fan when I originally first heard this one, but when it finished, it definitely is a lot stronger than I gave it credit for. It's a pretty powerful track in my opinion, and definitely one of the better singles, I would say. It was a pretty good one. It's a mood changer from the aggressive The Summoning, while keeping their signature sound for this album. A new genre mashup that proves effective. If they got a lot more genre mashups, I'm all in for it, because this one works as well. I give it a 4 out of 5. The fourth single, Aqua Regia, is next on the album, and this one definitely, again, is very different and definitely shows how diverse they're trying to go for, especially with the singles. This one is a lot calmer, definitely one of the calmest tracks I think they've ever released. I'm quite happy with it. I think the piano they use really shines throughout the, pretty much whenever it's used, especially the piano solo in the middle of the track. It just enhances its soft shell with a lovely tone, and I definitely was not expecting this one to be as good when I heard it was going to be another pop focused track, which we had after GRANITE, but that was actually a pretty good track, not gonna lie. There's no guitars or heavy vocals, it's just a full shift to a soft pop sound that explores new ideas we haven't really heard, because this definitely feels a lot fresh for a Sleep Token track. It's a calm shift to let the energy simmer, the moment of peace before the rampaging storm. Give this a 3 out of 5. The fifth single, because they've put a lot of the singles as the first 5 tracks, we have is Vor. When I mentioned the Rampaging Storm, this was what I meant. This song is an absolute behemoth when it comes to just a heavy Sleep Token track. It's one of the most dirtiest and just grittiest ones we have, and it rivals up with Gods as one of the most intense tracks that just shines with a really clean production, and just not really giving you much room to chill with the clean vocals you get offered, because as soon as you're sort of mellowed out and relaxing to it, it just hits you again like a train. It's honestly a pretty intense track. It's honestly a weird concept that the album wanted to have a track called Vor. In case you don't know, that's pretty much the concept of swallowing someone whole, which is a fetish, and I think it's an odd concept to have, but I think it honestly works tremendously well with the context of this record. And when we're seeing pretty much a narrative about each entity, especially on the single art cover, it kind of makes sense to have something like this, even if I think it's a bit weird. But when I saw the track, I definitely knew it'd probably be a heavier one. I just don't see them doing a soft ballad or poppy song about Vor, to be honest. The heavy gutted screams to one of the best choruses of the whole discography. It just shows the amazing range that Vessel has when you're going from absolute intense screams to some great falsettos. The chorus to this track is phenomenal, and it does what the Summoning does as well. You have a heavier overall atmosphere of the song, but when you get to the chorus, you just showcase the beautiful clean vocals. I will say I probably think the song is stronger than the Summoning. It's definitely my favourite so far. I just wasn't really expecting a song like this as a single. I thought it would be kind of a hidden surprise that latches onto you, but believe it or not, there are still more surprises out there for this album. Give it a 5 out of 5. Ascensionism, the first new track that isn't a single. I didn't know what to expect, but oh my days, we're just going for another fantastic track right here. I just want to mention straight away the part where Vessel just screams, "You're gonna watch me ascend," while within this breakdown that happens, just in the last couple minutes is insane. It's honestly one of my favourite moments in Sleep Token's whole discography. It just completely caught me off guard, and it is so bloody good. It's interesting because this song has quite a lot of ideas to it. It starts off with a ballad sound, then it shifts to a more pop style with a bit of rapping, I guess, to it, and then it ignites into a breakdown before its final ending, where it just kind of goes calm and just extinguishes the last bit of energy this track wanted to save. And honestly, some of my favorite instrumentation is at this final minute. It's insanely brilliant, and I was not expecting this track to be as good as it was, but hearing reviews on Ascensionism being a favorite on a lot of them, I'm kind of not surprised, honestly. The poppy sound wasn't really my cup of tea when it went from the ballad aspect to a kind of calmer direction to this more poppy idea, but I also remember that Granite and Aqua Regia sort of did a similar thing, and yeah, I kind of knew big things were coming. I shouldn't have really been so picky, and going back into it again, it's really, really good. It definitely grew on me a huge amount. The breakdown showcases some of the best guitar work. There's some really huge chuggy riffs on here that just sound incredibly dirty, and rivals anything from rivals any of their songs, to be honest. I think this is probably the best guitar work. It's immensely deep, it's immensely heavy, and it definitely shows Ascensionism's crazy turn to a very loud ending, and I definitely enjoy that. Honestly, as well, the narrative and the ideas behind this track opens up as a huge cinematic masterpiece. It's definitely the first track I'm noticing they're kind of going for a more trying to build up that story they're telling here, and it's brilliant. I think honestly this track, I've said that word a lot, honestly, but yeah, this track is probably my favorite. And we had the Summoning, which was fantastic, Vor, which was incredible and beat the Summoning, but I would say Ascensionism is one step ahead of them. It's a really good track, and it just throws you into a wild ride. It's the most anticipated non-single off the record besides the title track, and I was left stunned to a possible new favourite. It is my new favourite. This is another 5 out of 5. Are You Really Okay? The first of the two question tracks which reflect upon Vessel as a person, well, how he sees himself as a person, and I'd say it's the stronger of the two songs for sure, in my opinion. The next one is coming along in a bit, but yeah, I'd probably say out of them, this is the better of the more kind of calmer personal tracks. This definitely is one that stood out to me a lot more, to be honest. The guitars slowly pop out, and I quite like it. It develops carefully without feeling too forced into this record, and I think that's kind of all I gotta say. It's not really a eccentric, exciting track, and when you have to follow up with two of the best Sleep Token songs, in my honest opinion, it's definitely got a lot of competition, I'd say, at least. It's still good. I'm definitely expecting songs like this on this record, and this is no exception. But yeah, I'm just not crazy on it. I think this is not a song that a lot of people would necessarily like if they were personal fans that joined in through the Summoning. I don't know. If you're looking for a heavy Sleep Token record all the way through, it's not going to be a thing, I don't think. And this definitely shows it. But if you like the more poppy aspect, I think this is definitely a good track. I think with a more open mind, it's a good track, and I think a lot of people might enjoy it. It's a 3 out of 5. I didn't mean to sort of like gatekeep, but I have just noticed a lot of people who joined the hype from the Summoning and absolutely hated the other song that I'm going to mention that's also named after a question that's 2 tracks away. I'll mention that in a minute. But yeah, 3 out of 5. The Apparition. Yep, it has bits of trap beats, which I think works quite well here. It goes for a sort of new flow with it, and even if it's only for one verse, it does give a little distinguished, unique aspect that we haven't really had in the first 7 tracks beforehand. So it, yeah, there you go. It's something that gives it a little fresh take at least. It definitely feels like a stronger Granite in my opinion. I like Granite quite a lot, and out of the singles, it was my third favourite, and we've had 6 singles, so that's definitely promising considering 2 of the singles, Summoning and Vor, are 5 out of 5, so Granite being third, it does hold up really well as well. But yeah, I kind of prefer the Apparition if I'm going to be honest. It's just been a song that kind of pulls me in a little bit more. I kind of like the way they blend the heaviness nicer here, whereas some songs on this record might feel like they fall under a similar formula, like Granite, which sets the example for it, where the song is a bit poppy and it kind of drives that and then starts to build out a little guitar breakdown to kind of give it a little bit of that oomph aspect, and it's cool. And the song doesn't necessarily do it that way because it does build up the guitars midway as well, especially for the first or second chorus. It does kick in not near the end, so it's nice that there's it's got a kind of different song structure. But yeah, that's kind of a thing I've noticed, and I'll kind of bring that up a bit later on the talking about the overall album, because I will do that at the end. But yeah, the synths transition in the first portion to the trap beats kind of reminds me of the Summoning transitioning from its heavy sound to the outro, which went for more of a jazz breakdown session, which was quite cool. It's not really a big thing, but it just kind of reminded me of that, and I thought that was quite cool. Even if it's in the bass song and not for its outro, I think it's kind of a nice little touch. I don't really got much else to say about the Apparition. I think it's more of a hidden gem that makes exploring the second half of this album incredibly rewarding. It's definitely at least one of the stronger non-singles of this album so far. It's a pretty good one. 4.5 out of 5. Here it is. Do You Wish That You Loved Me, shortened to DYWTYLM, but I'm not going to call it that because why would I do that? I'm not really a fan of the sound Fall For Me had of This Place Will Be Your Tomb. I wasn't a big fan of its a cappella with autotune over, which that was pretty much the song. Like, lyrically it's fine, but it just was that, and it kind of put me off a little bit of it. But it's quite toned down here. There's still autotune, but you kind of get a small happy instrumentation that I thought was decent, and I think accompanies it okay at least. Like with Are You Really Okay, the other question track, this being it, you have to kind of approach it with a open mind, because Sleep Token could try about anything, and this is an example of it. The main reason I'm mentioning about fans not really liking some of the softer stuff if they kind of joined in from the Summoning, there was a decent bit of backlash about this track, mainly because it was very pop focused, and this is a thing that has happened on every Sleep Token album, so it's gonna happen, and if it's the one track you don't like, it's gonna kind of be the point, I'm afraid. It's not a strong song, honestly, and it doesn't stand much of a chance to every other track I've mentioned, but the thing I do like about it is it has a deep meaning, with Vessel asking himself, do you wish that you loved me? It's definitely got some deep lyrics here as well, and it doesn't just come off as a love song, which some people might have interpreted it as. I did when I listened to it, but looking at the lyrics now, it's definitely quite not the case. So it's nice that it is going with some more deeper meanings to this track, because that's definitely the strongest aspect to it, and it definitely just shows there's more than meets the eye to it. It's the most hated of the singles for its full pop direction, where the other tracks sort of incorporated some ideas that didn't necessarily feel like that way. Aqua Regia kind of had a little bit of that pop sound, but it measured in some kind of bluesy direction to make sure it's not fully pop, and it kind of gives it a nice calmer sound, to be honest, that I think a lot of people definitely like more than this track. It's a good album so far, and this probably is the weakest point to it, and this is definitely my least favourite single as well as song on this album, but the lyrics paint a whole new meaning over this simple sound, and it's good to an extent. I'd probably say it's 2.5 out of 5. I still would listen to it, and I don't hate it, I don't dislike it at all, I'm just not crazy big on it. It's definitely the weakest. We have Rain. Good old Rain. Another slower start. song, which I think is a pretty common thing with the second half of this album. As I mentioned, it's sort of going for a bass formula. This is kind of one thing I haven't noticed with a bunch of songs on this album so far. But yeah, it starts to juggle the piano chimes to kind of build up an atmosphere to a sort of heavy one, from what it sounds like. And it kind of reminds me of Fall Out Boy, but accompanied for a more metal direction. And that's definitely why I only say that, because if I said it sounds like Fall Out Boy, I think that's going to be one of the worst takes I've ever come up with. Yeah, Rain Pours Down with a catchy refrain that lives rent-free in my own head. It's definitely one of the better choruses I've heard on this record, and it does stand out to me quite a lot. I keep getting it in the back of my head, and it definitely shows how Rain is got some kind of punchy ideas as well. I think the outro leading with the backing screams just ends this track on a hauntingly great note. It's definitely an interesting, underrated song, and I feel like that's pretty much what is mainly going to be remembered for, is one of the lesser known, underappreciated tracks. It's a good one for sure. But yeah, Rain Down on Me. Oh, 4 out of 5. Okay, it's here. The track I think a lot of people have been really looking forward to because of how long it is. The longest Sleep Token track they have done. Take Me Back to Eden, the self-titled track. It is definitely a lengthy track that just pulls you into an aura of discomfort. Starts off slow and amps up slowly every minute with either metal, trap beats, melancholy piano chimes, and sort of a mix of everything solid that this album has to fit perfect for the title track. If I had to represent this album with a lot of the ideas it has, this is probably the best way to go about it. It has a lot of everything. You got some heavy guitars, you got some absolute crazy vocals, they're just beautiful. You got some more poppy aspects, and you even got the kind of slow start as well, which they've been doing for quite a few tracks on this record. Vocal performance is probably the strongest one here. A soothing harmonic vocal range that aids through one of their darkest songs yet. This definitely is a strong, badass song, and I would be lying if I said otherwise. The breakdown at the end is just so sudden, but it's fantastic. We had a breakdown in Ascensionism, and it is a good one. It's not really like very screamy. You got like one bit of a scream there, but this one just goes straight into it. Just suddenly just shocks you with it, and it's just an absolute pull with just emotions, just incorporating loads of goosebumps into me. It's a really good track. It's the longest and one of the most progressive songs from Sleep Token. Extremely cinematic and doesn't drag on one bit. To me, this is another 5 out of 5. I don't even know where I can rank this one, because there's so many. There's quite a few 5 out of 5s already. It's definitely rivaling for top 3 in my opinion. It's without a doubt one of the stronger songs they've done. And finally, we're ending off with EUCLID. Like I said, I hope that's how you pronounce it, because I have not checked the pronunciation video on it. So there's quite a bit of a coda at the more or less start of this. It's sort of a surprise, and I think it kind of works in the context of this record. We've had auto-tune over tracks like Do You Wish That You Loved Me, so this isn't really anything to absolutely lose my head over. It's another track blessed with a beautiful piano chime throughout. I kind of like the way they incorporate it, especially towards the end. I think it adds to a really good kind of dramatic feel that this is the final chapter, final track to this trilogy that Sleep Token have been writing. This is the end of the story, and we don't know what's going to happen next. Are they going to rebrand? Is there going to be a new bit of lore, which I assume probably is the highest likely case, but this one definitely leaves you up with so many interpretations that it's just honestly outstandingly pretty good as well. It's kind of unsure. I'm not unsure what is next, obviously, because there's a lot of ideas that they want to go off here, and we don't know what's going to happen next after that. There's lots of references to look back on throughout the career of this band, especially with the reference to the night does not belong to God, with the night belongs to you. There's quite a few references throughout this album, but this track as a whole, it kind of goes for references to both the albums we've had beforehand. And I think it's quite nice that it just feels like you're looking back at this journey to see how far you've come, and you don't know what's going to go on from there. You've made quite a journey to make it to Sleep Token's third album. If you've been a fan since Sundowning, you've been on this adventure for a while. Even if you've been a fan beforehand with the 1 and 2 EPs, it's pretty interesting, honestly. I kind of got in a little late, but I can definitely see that there's a lot of appreciation for where Sleep Token have come from, and managing to spread more of the story around is a relatively awesome thing for sure. This song feels like an overlook to where Sleep Token have started from, a journey throughout to this day and this position in time. There's so many good aspects of this track. I enjoy the guitars, I enjoy the way they just shine down and pretty much give you this one last send off to this whole album and this trilogy. It's amazing. It's a pretty good track. I give it a 4 out of 5, but I did quite like this one quite a bit. It could be a 4.5 on another day. And that is every track pretty much ranked and reviewed to an extent. I've never really reviewed an album track by track, so it is kind of hard for me to prepare as many notes. Sometimes I might not have much to say, sometimes I might have quite a bit, which is why some reviews might be 1 minute and some of the others might be 3. But I really enjoyed this album a huge amount. It's without a doubt my favourite of the 3 albums Sleep Token have put out. The only thing that's stopping me from calling it a perfectly good album is these minor problems. For one, Do You Wish That You Loved Me is definitely my weakest aspect with this album, and it's honestly kind of a shame. I do like the track to an extent, but it's just not one I'm really crazy on. At least in my opinion, it's stronger than Fall for me, and as a whole I wasn't crazy on This Place Will Be Your Tomb. I did think it's a good album, but I wasn't really shocked with it. I thought it was kind of an alright album, alright good one. But no, I really enjoyed this one. I personally think there was a lot of great ideas they had outside of that track. I think Ascensionism, Take Me Back to Eden, as well as Vor and The Summoning are without a doubt 4 of the strongest Sleep Token songs I've listened to. Definitely some of the best ones I've heard, and even the ones that weren't perfect scores, like the Apparition, Granite, Rain, as well as Euclid. There's some really good ideas here, and even some of the not as well crafted songs like Chokehold and Do You Wish That You Loved Me and Are You Really Okay, I still think they have quite a nice spot on this record, and I even like Chokehold quite a bit, so that's definitely saying quite a lot that they have got a lot of creative ideas here, and I think this album explores them to a good extent. My other kind of little gripe I had with this one is they do kind of feel like they're following a formula with some of these tracks. Some tracks feel spontaneous and give you a lot of unique ideas to kind of play with, whereas this later half especially, it just kind of felt you're kind of listening to a similar thing that's been done with the first half. And I'm not saying that's on all the tracks, because I feel like Ascensionism, which is on the first half, showed how they can pretty much incorporate a breakdown without it feeling like it's following that, oh, here you go, something heavy's coming. And Take Me Back to Eden does do that as well, but it does it in quite a shocker of a track that gives it a lot more, pretty much, especially since it's trying to follow a lot of the songs sound that this album has had, trying to follow a lot of that direction and genres that they're blending in. It kind of makes sense that we have it on those tracks. Some tracks may have not needed what it had, like Rain probably didn't necessarily need a little heavy bit of guitar work towards the end, and I don't think the Apparition necessarily needed it either, but I think it kind of was cool to have it as well. It definitely showed the band was trying to go for something heavy, but at the same time, the definition of heavy was incorporate some heavy guitar breakdowns rather than just having some heavy guitars that just stimulate with the song. But as a whole, it's still a really good album. Start to finish, there's just not really a skipping track in my opinion. I would have given it a full 5 out of 5 for an album, but I think with Do You Wish That You Loved Me and kind of this formula for the second half, it isn't quite that good to be a masterpiece of an album, but it's still a really good album for sure. It's one of my favourites of the year. I'd probably say it is top 3 album of the year, up there with, at the moment, Catatonia and Bury Tomorrow. I don't know my top 3 at the moment, even if it's the March review has said that Bury Tomorrow is my favourite. We'll have to see, but it just depends on the day. This is a pretty good album. I definitely recommend it if you're a fan of a more kind of poppy sound. I recommend it if you like both hard and softer directions, and this album does a really good job of that. It's a really good album. Yeah, thank you for watching this review, and the next review I'm going to be recording is the Enter Shikari, A Kiss for the Whole World, which released back in April, so that will be coming out some point soon. Thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next video.